All right. Yeah. Sorry for the little technical problem there, if anyone was actually already watching. But yeah, we got it all straightened out, and it's time for the thing again. The thing where we do the thing,
The
the
thing.
thing. We answered the questions,
You
and
got the answers to your questions.
yeah, and hopefully we do a good job today because if we don't do a good job, Nick is going back to his old job at McDonald's.
No, I already
Um,
started again.
that's why he's got
So,
that hat on.
yeah.
He's working the drive-through again. Times are tight. Times are tight in the good old US of A. Um,
Some of you guys know this meme. Some of you don't, but
wh- what meme?
this one.
What does it say? I can't see that close.
Nothing. No, there is. It doesn't say anything. It's just a guy putting his McDonald's hat back on. Only he's got crypto tattoos all over his arm and stuff.
Okay.
Whenever the bear market starts or things crash real hard, that meme starts going everywhere. Hence why I bought the hat.
Looks like things have been definitely picking up again, at least in the past 2 days, I guess. Had a little bit of a bounce. I
Yeah,
kind of
we'll see
expected
what
to go back down
happens.
again and test again, but like it always does. But guess we'll see. Probably be a little rocky from here on out. What are you doing? Are you still playing it pretty safe, or are you going hard,
No, I'm buying stuff actively right now. Um,
averaging?
yeah, yeah. And
Cool.
I will continue to do so. Most of the stuff I'm playing with is pretty floored out, it seems like.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, guys, you know the drill. If you've got any SEO questions or any questions really, you could ask about Nick's new career at McDonald's, if that's
Hmm.
something you're interested in. But
I
yeah,
make the French fries just right.
man, that's good to know. You'll have to let me know when you're working because
Well,
I actually
a
really
lot
like
of
McDonald's French
a
fries
lot of people
when
don't
they're
take
good.
pride in their work, you know. It's something that I pride myself on. Every job I've ever done, I don't think there's a single job where I didn't, really put out for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna make a joke for Brian in case he was watching this, something about working at McDonald's and learning
I've
lessons in
actually
life, but
uh, I've actually never worked at McDonald's, but I was the Chick-fil-A cow for a couple days in college.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I've never yeah, no, I've never worked for any kind of fast food. Definitely worked for pizza place like sports bar kind of deal across from campus when I was in college, but um yeah, never done the fast food thing. I bet that Chick-fil-A dancing
It was easy. It was
was it?
yeah, you don't have to talk or do anything. You just get in the suit and you just sweat and dance.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah,
you'd get tired. It seems like it'd
it
actually
was
be pretty
easy.
tiring.
Easy. I was, in shape. I was a college dude, just I had stamina back then. So yeah,
Ooh,
maybe I'd tire out and pass out from heat exhaustion at this current age.
age is not
We're
kind
about to
to
start
us.
losing people talking like fucking, I mean, freaking boomers.
Whatever. All right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get going. If anyone has a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and we will get to you in the order that the questions come in, and you'll be given priority. Otherwise, we will be um, yeah, we'll be going through questions that
There,
people have asked us elsewhere in our group, emails, PMs, whatever, and we'll get to
there was
those
a
later.
pretty good question asked in our group by Owen, if you
Yep,
want to
yep, we'll
start
get
with
to all
that.
those. I've
Oh,
got
you
some of
got
them
it?
already prepped up. Yep. Um, all right, let's see. Pull up another tab here. Oh, I actually hadn't seen Owen's question, but we'll get to that one and we'll get to everything. All right, here we go. This is from Chad. If you're rebuilding an aged domain and a few of the URLs don't have dashes or spaces and the words run together like slash everything is together, should you 301 them to a new URL paths that have the dashes? Or it's not that big of a deal. There was only a few of them. Um, I would just say go ahead and change them and then 301 the old ones to the new ones. It's just kind of a best practice. I don't know how much of a difference it'll really make to be fairly honest with you. It's just something I always do. And you know when it's on your website and you're just 301ing the old URL to the new URL, you know 301s when you're doing it like that work very differently from when say you have an old domain and you're 301ing a URL on the old domain to the URL on the new domain, where it can be kind of iffy if it's going to work or not. The 301s on your own site, they just work, right? I wouldn't really worry about losing any kind of link juice or anything like that. You could make the change pretty easily. Just you could just completely copy the page and then use a plugin or whatever to 301 it if you want. What do you have to say on that, Nick?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. Go ahead and switch them up. I actually think, from just like a technical standpoint, it would probably help you in the SERPs, or at
Yeah,
least, because if it's all running together like that, you got to imagine that these crawlers, they're just robots digesting data.
yeah, it
And
just makes it
especially when we
easier for
talk
them.
about language and how it's, normally written, et cetera. Now you come across blogs, where people run words together, there's different slang, et cetera. But it's not going to be too common that I think that exists in the permalink structure. And then on top of that, it's just yeah, it's gonna be less confusing overall. So yeah, best practice, just go ahead and do it right. It's not gonna take you too much time, and it's gonna be worthwhile.
Yeah, it's also good for users on your site too,
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and look at what Google has to say about this. I'd already pulled this up. And so let's see here. Uh, blah, 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 blah. Let's consider using punctuation in URL. So it says that they actually recommend using hyphens. They actually do not recommend letting them run together, like he was mentioning in his question. Um, and yeah, so the reasoning up here at the top is a site's URL structure should be as simple as possible. Consider organizing your content so that URLs are constructed logically in a manner that is most intelligible to humans. Um, Blah, blah, blah. I thought they said something else. I thought they said something about what you were talking about, how it just makes it easier for the bots to read. I don't know where I read that, but I did read it somewhere. One other thing I saw when I was looking on here real quick, it says that they recommend not using underscores and to use hyphens instead. Um, I don't really know why, but if Google's telling you to do it like this and it's not that big of a deal and it's easy to do and there's basically nothing to lose by doing it, I would just go ahead and do it and then make it just part of your process, moving forward. Not really a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, can imagine this, right? Like if a bot is going to crawl backslash everything is together like that, right? How many different words are in there that a bot could read and then kind of put together different ways, then assume that there's, maybe slang involved, et cetera. It's just going to be confusing. Like, we're not talking about sentient problem solving beings here. We're talking about a dumb robot that's crawling and sorting data. Yeah, like it says up here, it's going to be easier for it to digest. So,
Yeah, so that's pretty much all I got to say on that. Should be good. Let's see what's next. How is Webflow for SEO versus WordPress? Um, I think Nick is a has a passionate answer about this one. Maybe not passionate, but
No, I don't really know. I'm not familiar with Webflow.
well, just using anything other than WordPress.
Well, yeah, but that's not to say, I mean, like, I just don't know. I'm assuming it's probably like, when I look it up, Wix and Weebly and stuff like that come up. So I'm guessing it's just like another one of these template kind of responsive
Yeah.
websites. Anyhow, um, what I've come to find is out of everything that I've tried over the years, everything that I've worked with, everything that I've seen clients work with, WordPress is the most adaptive, best thing to use if you're, really playing this game for the purposes of SEO. So looking briefly into Webflow, it's a no-code site builder, etc. My guess is you're going to run in the same issues that you run in with a lot of these kind of web builders, which is a lack of functionality that allow you to really go after what you're, going to target in the SERPs versus something like WordPress, where, yeah, you're probably going to have to put in a little bit more time to learn WordPress to kind of figure out what makes it, tick in the SERPs. But once you do, then you've created a recipe that you can use across, countless projects over time. So, yeah, when it comes to adaptability and buildability for the purpose of targeting SERPs, I would just always recommend WordPress, quite honestly. I've even done a few HTML sites, and quite honestly, it always just ends up a mess because then you've got to rely on other people to do your work for you. And if you've done a lot of work with coders that especially are freelance, then you probably run into time issues and stuff like that in your search to doing those kinds of things. So, yeah, WordPress, in my opinion, just the way to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. Our answer is pretty much the same when it comes to should I use blah 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 instead of WordPress, or should I use Wix, should I use Weebly, or whatever, not Weebly, but should I use anything other than WordPress? And the answer we're pretty much always gonna give is no, and it's exactly for what Nick said. It's the functionality. Just everyone's on WordPress. You know for a fact you're not going to be restricted from making certain changes that can be very beneficial to your SEO. You're not going to have to learn some weird system just for this one site, and then every other site you work on be completely different. When you're looking for support online, if you have a question, you'll be able to find it very easy for WordPress because there's millions of people asking the same question. Um, the plugins, just the amount of plugins that you can do pretty much anything you want with. There's just an entire like huge infrastructure, built on WordPress already. And when you hop over to these page builders who are pretty much marketed around it's easy and look, it's pretty. It's pretty and it's easy. You'll have a pretty website and you don't need to know anything. There's page builders on WordPress too, and if you're going to pay for Webflow, you might as well pay for a builder, whatever builder you want to use on WordPress anyway, and then you're still going to have all the functionality you need to make any SEO change you ever need to make. But yeah, so I don't know the exact details of Webflow, so I can't really speak to what exactly you'd be missing out on. Maybe they have everything. Maybe Webflow allows you to adjust everything. I still wouldn't use it because I would have to relearn everything instead of just doing it on WordPress where I know how to do everything. And you would be lacking like the plugin support, all the third-party developers making plugins for whatever that comes along. And just all that stuff. It's just as far as scaling goes, might as well just stick with WordPress the way I see it. Anything to add on that, Nick?
Yeah, and scaling too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard not to find somebody at any given point that knows how to work on WordPress, right? Versus some of these more obscure things where they've got less functionality, then yeah, you're going to run into issues.
But yeah, I'm not trying to knock on Webflow or anything. Um, I just see absolutely no reason to switch anything at this point. Um,
Yeah, it looks like Squarespace to me.
yeah, they're all kind of the same as far as I mean, there's no real reason to really look into it further as far as I can tell. But anyway, yeah, hopefully that helps. Let's go ahead and get to Owen here. Hey, school me. Here, I'll go ahead and get the group for you. So to find our group on Facebook, you can always just search for Sir Links-a-Lot. You can always search for SEO Roundtable, or I just dropped the link in the chat for you. And yeah, we do recommend joining the group. I mean, a lot of people like to watch on YouTube. I think actually more people watch this on YouTube than on Facebook. But if you're in our Facebook group, then you get, we post stuff every day and you can ask questions every day. And you can also get help from our group members rather than just us. And if we were like sales or news or anything, we post it in there too. So the group's definitely the place to be. Hey, Summit, we'll get to your question here in a minute. We're going to get to this other one first. Big question. I think we're going to have to split this up. All right. Any suggestions on moving forward after a penalty is lifted? So you had a penalty, the penalty was removed. My site got hit by an unnatural inbound links manual penalty exactly 2 years ago. After hiring a couple of experts, in quotes, and disavowing pretty much all backlinks, and after 6 rejections from Google, the penalty is finally lifted. One of the reconsideration requests took 7 months for a response from Google. In these 2 years, I have not updated the website much, so no backlinks built, no content added, so naturally the website traffic declined almost 70% steadily, not sharply. That's actually not that bad. You actually retained some traffic. 30, a lot of times when you see a site get a penalty, it loses, 95, 99% of it. So the fact that you retain some traffic is kind of cool. How should I move forward from here and restart SEO without triggering a manual penalty again? Yeah, so, this time around, you're going to want to follow link building best practices. And, those are link diversity, anchor diversity. You could say link velocity, but that's not something I really think about as really a best practice. Rather than just doing a huge burst of links and not doing any links for a long time, I'd rather just have a steady flow of links over time. But if you want to do it fast, you can always do a huge influx of links, but just keep it going rather than just big pops. But even then, you could still do big pops because that could happen naturally as well. If the site just gets a lot of press out of nowhere, maybe that an article go viral or something. But anyway, link diversity, using different types of backlinks because natural sites get different types of links. They don't just get one type of link. Anchor diversity, using a mix of natural anchor text because sites get a mix of natural anchor text like branded anchors, URL anchors, generic anchors, and your money anchors as well, but that'll be a much smaller percentage of your link profile other than just the natural stuff, long tail stuff, topical stuff as well. Linking to your homepage a good amount rather than linking to your inner pages super heavily. We like to link very healthy amount of links to the homepage. And yeah, I think that's pretty much, healthy amount of homepage links, practicing link diversity, practicing anchor diversity, especially in the beginning, in the beginning, you're going to be going very heavily to the homepage, hardly hitting any inner pages at all. And as well with anchors and with your anchor text, you're going to be very natural in the beginning for a good amount of time before you start doing a good amount of exact match anchors. Um, and yeah, I think that'll pretty much get you started. I'm also going to drop a link in the chat as well as on your question in the group about how to build links for a new website. And I think that would kind of answer the question kind of generally as well. It's pretty much going to talk about what I just talked about here, except maybe go a little bit more in depth. But yeah, coming off a penalty, you're going to want to be pretty conservative. You're going to play it safe, just like you're building links to a new site. And yeah, just kind of take it from there. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, so adding to what Chris said, which is all accurate, some things that I think kind of stand out is how you say you didn't add any content, I guess, as all of this was going on,
Oh,
etc.
that's good.
Um,
Yeah, I kind of
what
skipped
I've
that.
come to find is that especially when you're trying to get a reconsideration request to work, some of the things that help out would be to transfer the site to possibly a new registrar, put it on a parking page. Um, and then you could even open it back up and start a small site dedicated to whatever you want to go after, and then put in a reconsideration request. Google can see everything that's going on with that particular domain, right? And so what they want to see in order to decide that they're going to allow this site to operate again, having known that it was doing, manipulation tactics in the background, is that it's like far away from where it previously existed, where it previously got that penalty, right? So now that you've gotten it back, you're going to restart everything. I also probably would say not to focus terribly heavily on backlinks at this given time. It's going to be good to start a campaign to keep it going. But where you're really going to want to, move, I think, with this site is through the content. Now it's going to depend on a lot of variables like, is this an affiliate site? Is it going to be massive, or is it like, a small local site, something like that? But just some things to consider. And then outside of that, yeah, you've already been penalized once. Essentially, my guess is there is some kind of way, like some kind of monitoring system that says, this one's been in a bad neighborhood before. So somehow I think, there's ways for Google to check up on, what you might be doing. And so you're going to want to be extra natural with any kind of manipulation tactics you do on this website, here for the foreseeable future. And a way to monitor that is through traffic. As the site builds, oftentimes we talk about the starting points of a site, which kind of, exist at the bottom of the SERPs. And then when you finally get that trust flow to that particular asset, to that website, you'll see a kind of a big rip, like an Ahrefs or in Google Analytics, that should signify you're starting to gain trust in Google. And that's when you start, moving, being tested and prodded throughout the SERPs. So, you're going to want to look for that as well. Just treat it like you're basically starting from scratch with this asset, in my opinion.
Yeah, so so Nick completely touched on something that I completely skipped over because your question was how do I move forward and restart your SEO overall. I just went on I just answered it completely from a link building perspective, since it had been a penalty triggered by links, so links were in my head. But yeah, just like with any website, content and what you're doing with the site itself is hugely important as well. You definitely want to be maintaining the site, updating content, adding new content. Just show Google that you're putting time and effort into your site, that you're trying to produce content that readers actually want to read, that stuff that they're searching for. Yeah, content is such a massive thing. We kind of downplay it a lot because, um, you know, in a lot of situations, if you know what you're doing, you can just kind of brute force things with links. But when it really comes down to it, I mean, you should not skimp on your content efforts. It's just such a huge thing as well. And yeah, so definitely, yeah, just move forward with adding new content to your site regularly. Anything else to add, Nick?
Yeah, something else I want to just add real quickly that we didn't touch on is, disavow. So a lot of people, they'll go talk to whichever SEO expert, and a lot of these SEO experts love saying disavow, disavow, disavow. We talk a lot here about almost never disavowing unless it's 100% certain that that's the only way we're going to get out of a hole. And
You
so,
did have the
not
manual
saying that
penalty.
wasn't the right,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but not saying that's the wrong recourse of action, but yeah, even when you do have the manual penalty, you're going to want to make sure that you hire somebody, especially if you're hiring somebody to do the disavow for you, who knows what types of links are actually toxic and what types aren't. Because I've tried a plethora of different vendors who, when they send back the disavow file, it's going to be filled with links that you don't want to get rid of. And so it sounds like, basically they, wiped out your entire backlink profile from what I think you were saying. But that's fine. You're just starting off from scratch. It's just, if anybody else is watching, disavow is something that, you can kind of move slow with. And talking about the manual penalty too, I mean, I've resurrected sites that I wanted to use for PBNs before, without disavowing or doing anything like that before. And the way I did it was, how I talked about doing it when we were first talking about this question. So, yeah.
Yeah, he says they had disavowed pretty much everything. But yeah, um, it's a bit of a tricky situation when you're in a manual penalty and it's a link building penalty. But yeah, like Nick was saying, we're pretty we pretty much try to stay away from disavows when at all possible. Um, I I can't even remember the last time I disavowed a single link. Yeah, hopefully that helps, Owen, and we'll keep on moving on, see what we got next. Let's see here. Are internal links in the table of contents a best practice or not? Um, I would actually consider it a best practice. Yeah, it just helps Google understand um, exactly how the article is laid out. It just provides more information for the bot to understand the flow of the article, how it's all fitting together. It's a good user experience thing if the reader wants to jump around to something very quickly, which usually table of contents uh, usually appear on kind of like bigger articles and stuff. And so on these monster articles, it's of course, some people are going to read the whole thing, but a lot of people might just be looking for a particular part of it. So it could definitely help with user experience as well. I would say all in all, yeah, I would consider it a best practice. But what do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're talking about the internal links, you're talking about the jump to links,
Yeah.
which yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, whenever I think about table of contents, sometimes I think about a hub page too, which of course you'd want to interlink out of that as well. So yeah, I guess best practice, yeah, if you're gonna have a table of contents, then it might as well be functional, right? Um, Having said that, I've never really seen a table of contents either being there or not being there really affect its positions in the SERPs. Not to say that it can't. I'm just thinking back on times I've used or messed with it. And yeah, I can't really say that I've seen much difference either
Yeah,
way. But for user perspective, yeah, of course, it makes sense to be able to jump, especially large articles, like you said.
yeah, I've never I've never like added a table of contents with interlinks to it and just seen it like jump some positions because of that. Um, it's more so it's hard to quantify exactly like how much, of a difference you'll get from doing stuff like this. But I would just say overall, I would say it's just a good thing across the board, and it doesn't take much effort. And I would say it can only help as far as Google understanding your article, and as far as users also understanding your article and being able to just have that extra functionality of jumping to what they want to read. Um, so yeah, I would consider it a best practice. Let's see what we got next. Suresh. Um, internal links, relative or absolute format way? Not sure if I understand the question, Suresh. Do you know what he's trying to ask, Nick?
I don't think so, but oh, well, so I'm going to take a guess here. Relative meaning like using a money anchor, and absolute format meaning like a naked URL, right? Let's let us know if that's not what you mean, but let's go ahead and imagine that's the question, I guess.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
Suresh,
you
let
know,
us know. Try to clarify your question a little bit if you're still here, and we'll just answer what we think it is. So you're saying
um,
if it should be like a money anchor or like a kind of a descriptive anchor versus just a URL anchor or something.
I I mean, I think that's what this question would mean, right? I'm not really sure what else it would mean. But yeah, like,
All right,
oh, here we go.
URLs are.
Uh,
Suresh, I'm not really.
okay. Do we have to look at? Let's look it up.
I've never heard of the terms you're using. Okay, yeah. So an
Oh,
absolute URL is what we call just a URL anchor, um, and a relative URL.
oh. So it's more from like coder perspective, I guess, or like back end perspective, talking about the entire URL or just like the permalink of the URL, I guess. Either way, it's not something you really need to worry about. When you're talking about internal linking, the main things that you need to worry about are diversifying the anchor text that you use in general, right? You don't want to use the same anchor text going to the same inner page
Well,
over and
let,
over and over again.
so let's answer let's go a little bit more in depth to what he's asking. So it's pretty much he's not talking about the anchor text at all, right? It's just talking about the slug. Like if it's just the slug after the domain versus the entire slug including the domain name. I'm pretty
Huh?
sure that's what he means by relative versus absolute or whatever. And for that question, I would say it doesn't matter at all if Google can crawl the site using the link. I don't think it matters what kind of link it is. If when the bot basically clicks the link, does it travel to the other page? And if it's a functional link like that and it's not redirecting or anything, I would say it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I'll let Nick take the rest of it because I think what's more important is the anchors you're gonna use. Do you want to talk on that, Nick, or do you want me to say some stuff?
No, go ahead. I'm reading something
Yes.
about this.
So yeah, I think what's more important or is just the anchor text you're using. And so basically when you're getting, inbound links from other sites, you want to diversify your anchor text. You want to do the same thing with your internal links, except it's probably not going to be quite as, you're basically, you're not really going to build any branded anchors. You might not use too many URL anchors, but still mix up the anchor text that you're using. You can use a URL anchor every now and then when possible, but most of the time you're gonna be using either maybe some kind of miscellaneous anchor like here, or some kind of basically like a money variation keyword. So you could just use other variations other than the same exact match over and over and over again. But yeah, just to reiterate about your question, instead of you don't, I don't think it really matters
Yeah, I would
if you
agree
use,
with you based on what I'm looking at here. I'm like, yeah, so long as the crawler gets to the end result that you're trying to get them to,
yeah,
then it's fine.
yeah, because that's the whole purpose of an internal link, right? It's just to move the user from one page to the other, to show that they are connected, and to provide the transitional experience. If the user can do that, if the bot can do that, and there's no kind of weird stuff happening in the middle, I don't think it really matters exactly what the URL structure is, as long as the computers and the bots and whatever can use it to crawl.
Yeah, if the link works, it works.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps. Um, so Suresh, just to add a little bit more to that, whenever I'm doing internal links, I think I always do the absolute URL, which is the full slug. HTTPS slash www.sirlinksalot.co slash guest post, whatever. I use the full thing. It's just a habit that I do. I've never done the relative URLs, the other one that you had mentioned.
Yeah, that's like technical. We're here on the technical.
All right. In general, how many internal links is too many for one page? Uh, so who asked this? Dino. It's gonna be
There is no
hard.
answer.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to answer. Um, I don't think, so basically when you're doing internal links, people used to be a lot more like hardcore with you want this ratio, um, you want to structure it in exactly this way and only link to these things. And this will make your silo perfect. And then you're going to blast in the rankings. And now, even today, I was looking on Facebook, I was looking at some on-page discussions, and people have really backed off of that now. And people are just saying, link to what makes sense. So, you know, if you're just linking to what makes sense on your page, and you're not going crazy about it and have like a million internal links on every page, that's gonna just confuse people and make it not a good user experience, then you should be fine. Uh, yeah. Do you have anything to add on that, Nick?
I mean, so yeah, there is no real answer. And when you look at it from like a quote natural perspective, there's all sorts of variables that you could look at to basically quantify any narrative you want to create with this. Meaning, hub pages are typically going to have more links or inner links than like a normal page, because they kind of operate like table of contents a lot of times. Um, how much content is on that particular page, and then like Chris said, what's natural to see, linking in and out of that page. Um, Typically, when you look at it, you want it to feel like it's not created for the purposes of just interlinking. However, you can get away with doing that in the form of hub pages as well. So there is no concrete answer, but just do what you feel is natural for that particular page and what you're trying to do with it. If it's a page that you're trying to rank off of, then you're going to want to use things sparingly and more natural. And then over time, you're going to find that you'll want to add new interlinks to that particular piece of content, because you're probably adding new pages to this website, et cetera, that also need to get interpage links. So you want to allow room for growth a lot of times too. But how many links is too many? There really isn't such a thing as too many. I mean, like even the sitemap is just a bunch of inner links, right? And that's what website crawlers are using for the most part to crawl and kind of digest your website. So um, yeah,
Let's get this rocking today.
yeah, he's on the stairs. He's on the stairs having fun.
Um, yeah, so yeah, I think what's more important than the maximum amount of internal links you have is the minimum you should have. And so I don't ever put content, I don't ever put any kind, I mean, I guess it really depends, if it's like a landing page for a product or some, well, even then you can do to like related products and stuff. It's a very good thing to do. But generally, I there's never a page on my website that doesn't have internal links to something else. At least a couple. Um, so,
Yeah.
I would focus more on making sure you do have internal links related, linking to stuff that is kind of related that, if you're the reader and they're reading about it and they say, and they might not know about this other topic that you kind of mentioned briefly, like link to it. That's the whole idea is, you're keeping them on your website. You're supplying the user with more information about whatever topic, and yeah, and then also just think about it from, if they're reading your article and then they come to a paragraph and the paragraph has 10 internal links in it, it's just crazy. You're sending them all over the place. You're not even giving them like a chance to breathe and just digest the information, and they're probably not going to care about like, all these other things. But even then, just link to what makes sense. Link to things that are more relevant rather than less relevant. More closely related to whatever the article is, rather than just something that's completely off the wall. Unless you're having a hard time getting any internal links in an article, then you can link to stuff that's maybe less relevant than you would like to. Um, yeah, definitely make sure you have some. And as far as too many, I wouldn't really worry about that too much. Just do it in a way that makes sense for that users would like. Um,
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, usually when I'm thinking up interlinking, I'm exclusively thinking about how like these links are going to be crawled and what kind of information is going to be digested there. Typically, like, if you even just look at Sir Links a lot and how it's set up, the homepage acts as a hub page to, all our most important parts of the site, right? And then within the offshoots of all these different pages are internal links and different, used in different formats, etc. That overall are basically just creating a spider web of crawlability for Google crawlers, right? And so this gets them kind of, in there digesting the different parts of our site, what's important via what article, etc. But yeah, it's mainly done from, kind of a natural perspective with Sir Links versus some affiliate websites I have. A lot of stuff I like to do is I like to use a homepage kind of like that as a sort of hub page. Then I've got these strategically created hub pages under those where I'm going to be quite a lot more aggressive with my interlinking because the function of them is to create crawlability, not so much to get them ranked in the SERPs and to help users, but to help Google identify, these kind of subcategories, et cetera, that I'm trying to create this website to be about. And then the articles that I am trying to get ranked, then within there, the interlinks are going to be completely natural. Like it's just going to be to things that make sense. That's not used for manipulation, etc.
yeah, just to give you a little more of an example real quick before we move on. So, Nick was talking about using our home page as a hub page because it basically links out to a bunch of stuff. So you can see, we're linking to all of our different products from it. We're linking to some of our most recent blog articles, to our podcast. It's got a bunch of internal links. And then we also have these other hub pages, like for example, our link building services page, then links out to all of our different link building services. And then just to show you, here's a blog post or whatever, so more contextual interlinks. And you can see scrolling down that, just have some links in here every now and then. And some of these will probably be outbound authority links as well, because we also link to other stuff. Looks like the only outbound link we have here is a link to a YouTube article. But yeah, and generally, have at least one outbound authority link in a blog post, and then not at least one. I mean, as many as makes sense, but sometimes one, sometimes none, but usually have at least one. And then just, kind of put some internal links in it, but not too crazy. Just kind of spread them out. So yeah, hopefully that helps. And hopefully we didn't talk too long about it. Let's see what we got next. Suresh, you are welcome. Glad to have helped you. Looks like we got another question from Dinu. If I have a link on a PBN homepage that eventually rolls to an inner page, is that inner page link now useless? No, absolutely not. So as far as PBNs go, they're generally structured so that the homepage is the best place for a link to come from. But just because a link's not on the homepage doesn't make it useless. And so, it's much better for the link to be still up rather than just disappear completely, right? But then again, it's better to keep the link on the homepage of the PBN if possible. So, for example, on our I'm just going to talk about our services real quick, but this pretty much goes for anything, right? So we do, so first of all, we do the monthly 3-month rentals. So this guarantees your link stays on the homepage. So you have to keep paying for it to stay on the homepage. And that's because the homepage is the best, right? It's the most powerful. But then we have the one-time payment links, and these links, they start on the homepage, but then they'll eventually get pushed off by other articles. They'll get pushed off because, we only allow whatever it is, 5 or 6 articles on the homepage. And then after that, the oldest articles will get pushed out if it's not a rental. And yeah, so, these are definitely cheaper. And the reason for that is that it's just not quite as valuable for, you would prefer it to stay onto the homepage when possible. But yeah, definitely would not say it's useless. I would say it's still very good. I mean, it's still great. You still have a link. It's just basically still having a link versus not having a link. So, the power might be reduced, but definitely not useless. Definitely not. Do you have anything to add on that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, think about all your biggest, most favorite, or widely used websites. Majority of them are blog rules, right? So whatever link or article exists on the homepage for only a little while before going into an inner page. So this is very natural. I mean, if you go to businessinsider.com, I think that's probably just a very obvious example of that. But yeah, no, they're absolutely not useless. And even I would say that if they get deleted, a backlink still, I think, has some resonating value, but, that's why we don't delete links, because it makes sense for them to roll to the inner page, and then they exist there, and then they still have value in the form of crawlability, right? Because essentially what backlinks are doing are being crawled by spiders, Google spiders, Bing spiders, whatever, and they're cataloging data. And so over time, they're going to come back to this particular blog, crawl that inner page, and still, that value is going to be going and moving forward to your website. So yeah, definitely not useless, but like Chris said, probably not as valuable as a homepage contextual backlink.
I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent here, just because we're already on Business Insider. Guess what I can just make this a question. What's the difference? So the question we could say is, what's the difference between a PBN and a normal site? And the longer I stay in SEO, the longer that this question is harder for me to answer because I mean, I guess it would come down to intent, right? The PBN site, their whole intent is to pass link juice to make money, the increased rankings or whatever. But if you just come and you look at Business Insider here, I could see people, for example, maybe if someone purchased a guest post from us and we put it on a site that looked exactly like this, but it wasn't Business Insider, I could see getting a complaint and them saying, this isn't a real site. This is just a PBN. Look at it, just doesn't look real. It just has all this crap, this new like articles that are being posted on the front page all the time. Um, I mean, it's really hard for me to tell the difference between and I guess it should be, because then that means that we're doing our job correctly of building PBNs the way that they should be built, which is basically just, it's a blog roll site. I think that there's just really not much of a difference between something like a legitimate site like businessinsider.com, or even a site that's only selling guest posts, just a link farm site, versus even just a kind of high quality PBN that used something that wasn't like, an outdated WordPress builder from the 90s or something. I mean, this is just a very simple kind of layout blog roll type site that just has a bunch of seemingly random stuff posted all the time, right? Do you have anything to add on that, Nick? Just kind of on my little tangent.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing you're going to see that's the difference is going to be the content quality, right? PBN is going to have
For
cheaper
sure.
quality content. But what, I've talked about before is that the modern PBN, in order for it to be sustainable and effective, operates more like a lower end guest post type of network than it does an actual PBN. Because, historically PBNs were, ripping content or doing every corner cutting thing that you could possibly do to just, get that link in there and forward that juice. And so they've come a long way, like if you talk about our PBN, when I first started in PBNs, my PBNs didn't look real. They were just like WordPress, almost no images, just throw some spun content up maybe and add some backlinks. And for a while that worked, right? But over time, there's, this evolution has kind of happened. And when I look at our PBNs now, yeah, they're hard to distinguish, between real blogs. Like, you look at Business Insider, very popular blog, but yeah, they look and operate and feel that way, right? So it makes sense for the PBNs to do the same thing. And so, yeah, now at a glance, it'd be harder, and even when reading the articles, you'll note that uh, the language, and I'm specifically talking about our PBN, the language isn't on par to something that you would read on Business Insider. However, it is somewhat researched and it, does have, informative qualities. And when you're looking at it from a perspective of insulating a PBN, Google has to know 100% that the site in question is, sole existence is for manipulation purposes. And if it can't do that beyond a reasonable doubt, then it exists, maybe it gets knocked down as far as like the power level, that it can supply, but it can't get de-indexed, right? And so, if you look at our PBN, there's no spun content, there's no reused content, et cetera, and it's actually a higher quality content than you're going to find on most PBNs. Why? Specifically for the purpose of insulating, there's an immense amount of value in building a PBN, and it's very expensive to build and maintain. So spending the extra money to make sure that it's of higher quality is definitely worthwhile, and that's why we do those things. But yeah, hard to tell the difference if, it's a more modern PBN.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the more I think about it, is just the harder it gets to really, especially just visually, just a lot of these like huge websites, it's just a blog roll. It just looks like a link farm. But I mean, that's just the internet. So I guess link
The
farms
funny,
link
yeah,
farms look
that's what I
like
was going
the
to
real
say.
stuff rather than the real stuff looking like the
Well,
link farm. So
It's basically all link farms anyway, because I mean, you look at these big websites, they're controlled by news media conglomerates and crap like that, and it's like, yeah, they're putting out the content that they need marketed,
yeah,
right?
that's
It's just a higher level of the same shit that the bottom tiers are doing.
absolutely, absolutely. And if you
It's
if
just a
you
different
think
game.
that Business Insider isn't getting paid to do puff pieces on
Yeah.
whatever news stories or organizations or whatever,
Or that they don't use affiliate links.
yeah, they are 100%, and they're
Yeah.
100% doing the exact same thing. It's just
I think like one of the most expensive websites I remember seeing that got sold was Wirecutter, right? For like think it was like $28 million or something like that. And I think it cost them like $5 million to build it ground up, right? But it's essentially just like a high-end affiliate website. But you can dumb down those content pieces as much as you want. And it just be considered a different tier of work, but same principles.
yes, sir. All right, guys. Looks like we are out of time, and I don't see any new questions rolling in, so we'll go ahead and call it there. Yeah, thanks for coming out. Hopefully, we answered all of your stuff satisfactorily. I don't even know if that's a word. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I like it.
hopefully, we gave you some good answers to help you out. And yeah, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. It helps us out a lot. Definitely be sure to join our Facebook group, the SEO Roundtable, if you haven't already. That's the place to be. Like we talked about earlier, you can ask questions every day. You can get help from our group members instead of just us. We're also posting stuff every day, just like little tips and stuff like that, as well as you can stay in the loop for getting updated on, sales or promotions that we're doing, stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And we will see you same time next week, 12 p.m. CST Wednesday. Thanks, guys. And yeah, see you next time.